Now I guess we're going to talk about the lady in the red dress, my grandmother in the red dress. That's been a mystery for who that lady was for many, many years. And you found that portrait. Many years ago, I was interested in painting portraits. Must have been about 10 years old. And two portrait painters, two famous portrait painters, came down, one from New York, one from Houston, to paint my two great aunts. And I guess when the portrait painters, I mean, New Iberia, Louisiana, on the bayou, I mean, you're not going to hear of too many people getting their portraits painted. And I mean, I was just so incredibly mesmerized that a guy was coming to paint my aunts. And I started drawing when I was 5 and taking art lessons like when I was 6. So the aunts wanted me to come watch the painter. They were encouraging me, with my arts, to be an artist, I guess. They knew I was talented. And that's how the story came up about the lady in the red dress. While my grandmother's sister, John Ditline, was posing for her portrait, they started reminiscing about my grandmother's portrait. At the time she was sick, my grandmother was on the sidelines with me, and she said, "Lawyer, remember when you posed for Weeks Hall?" And they laughed. And I was a kid, and I was so interested in the painter painting my aunt, but I heard this story. They were gossiping, sort of reminiscing about while she was posing for the artist for the sketches. And my grandmother and her reminisced about her posing for Weeks and a French artist that was visiting with him I think he was from Paris. And they started reminiscing about how they went to the high school. Mr. Cousin, who was their teacher, evidently loved Mr. Cousin, and he loved them, and he suggested to Weeks Hall that one of the Boudreaux girls should pose for the artist. So one of the Boudreaux girls, Mr. Cousin, said to Weeks Hall then, for his friend, for the painter, he said one of the Boudreaux girls should pose. They're very beautiful girls. And when he asked Aunt Jean to pose, she said, "Have Laurie pose," because she said, "There's no way I'm going over there in that big old haunted house." And my grandmother said, "I would," and my grandmother said, "Well, Jean," she said, "and you want me to go pose over there?" And she said, "I dare you to pose." And I think the story is that I heard that my grandmother said, "And what you going to give me for the dare?" And she said, "Well, I have a brand new pair of silk stockings. If you pose, I'll give you the stockings." And in those days, in the 20s, I think silk stockings were like, buying a Cadillac. And so my grandmother, she said, "Definitely for those silk stockings, I'll pose." I think she probably told her, she said, "You just lost a pair of silk stockings." So she goes and she poses. And the story is that she had a red dress that she posed in. And she goes to the shadows, and the doors open, and she gets there, and the door's open, and there, I don't know if it was Tofil there, but one of the servants opened the door, and there's two guys coming forward, approaching, and they were all dressed up like dandies with spats, she said. And she said, ooh, I don't know if this is the right thing I should be doing. And I think they were cocktailing. And unusually, usually in those days they had a chaperone. So I don't know if my aunt was with her. Probably my Aunt Jean was with her. And she poses for the two orders. And I think she posed 2 days. And the story is that the French artist, he painted also. Where that portrait is, I don't know, but the portrait was supposed to be exhibited at the New Iberia hardware store in Maine because he wanted to get commissions in the area, in the Iberia parish, like Franklin, that area. And it was to promote him. Weeks was promoting him as a portrait painter. And he was supposed to give my grandmother the portrait he painted after he, I guess got commissions in there and used it. But that never happened, and the portrait evidently disappeared, and maybe one day you'll find the portrait. But it's almost like a surreal that you found that portrait of the lady in the red dress, that all these years I heard this story about my grandmother in that red dress posing for those two painters in weeks. And, it's like the girl with the pearl earring. There's always a story about these models after years that they posed, or like, Madame X. And I'm just very fortunate that we can share that. I'm still living today, that we can share that. We can put a name with this mysterious lady that you had in the attic. And I'm just delighted that you're going to have an exhibit for weeks, and that I can be there to share that lady in the red dress with you, my grandmother.
I used to paint, you see. I was always more or less the avant-garde, and I got scholarships to the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Art in Philadelphia, and from there I got the Crescent scholarships abroad. And I lived in Paris most of the time because I personally believe you don't go abroad to study now anymore as you used to study medicine, for instance. I mean, communications are so universal that instruction, new ideas, of course New York is the center of the art world. And if you're in New York and you get the best minds around you from which to absorb things, you get exactly what you get in Paris. What you get abroad, you see, is only the primal impact of seeing great architecture and not pictures of it, you see. And not pictures of pictures. You see the pictures in the original size and scale. You can't get that in books, you see.
A lot of people like I came from here that Weeks all inspired all of us, I think, to become artists. And I don't think it gets better than that.